Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being on the event. Thank you for just wanting to be part of the event and learning more about this event. I want to share a little bit before we get into some of the actors and the director, some of the Q&A. Let me share with you a few stats about human trafficking that involves forcing someone in sexual in situations of exploitation, which can cause forced labor, sex marriage, and even organ removal. As of 2019, it's an estimated there are between 20 and 40 million people that have been trafficked internationally. Assessing the full scope of trafficking, it is difficult because so often the crime goes undetected and unreported. Trafficking earns global profits of roughly $150 billion a year for traffickers, 99 billion of which comes from sexual exploitation. Globally, an estimated 2/3 of trafficked people are women and girls, which means men and boys account for the other 1/3. It is stated that the average age of teen enters the sex trade in the U.S. at 12 to 14 years old. Over half of the criminal trafficking cases active in the U.S. presently are sexual exploitation trafficking cases involving only children. And there comes to be a growing trend of traffickers using online social media platforms to recruit and advertise targets of human trafficking. Staggering stats, as you can hear. We're going to get into the Q&A. Let me introduce our panel, and then we'll get into the Q&A. And as we get in the Q&A, our panel, our director and actors will unmute themselves as we see some of the questions come through. First, we have Julia Verdin is an award-winning writer, director, and producer of Angie Lost Girls. We heard a little bit of her intro at the beginning of the event. She's passionate about raising awareness on child trafficking. Julia is also the founder of Artists for Change and the CEO of Rough Diamond Productions. As well as directing, she has produced over 36 feature films and loves to encourage other filmmakers to make social impact films. Olivia d'Abo plays the role of Angie's mother, Haley, in the film. She is loved for her role in The Wonder Years and is known for work in Justice League, Doom, Invader Zim, Conan the Destroyer, Wayne's World, and the conniving Nicole Wallace in Law and Order, Criminal Intent. Randall Batinkoff plays the role of Angie's father, Dan, in the film. He has extensive film credits, as well as being an accomplished director himself. Some notable credits include Buffy the Vampire Slayer and As Good as It Gets and The Peacemaker. Anthony Montgomery plays Detective Chase in the film. You may recognize him from his fantastic work on Star Trek Enterprise, General Hospital, and his most recent role was Elijah in The Family Business for BET. Kathy McGibbon Gibbons is a wife, mother, author, writer, and advocate who has overcome the dark world of sex trafficking herself. In 2021, Kathy joined the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking by presidential appointment. So we have a fantastic panel. It was a great event. It is very emotional for me personally. So I'm really excited and honored to help host this event. And we'll go through a little questions. As questions come through, we will ask the questions, and then I will call on the individual to answer the question. We will start with Julia, and we'll ask Julia a question. How did she come up with the story Angie Lost Girls?
Thank you so much, Johnny, and thank you from the bottom of my heart, all of you who've taken time out on your Friday night to be here with us and to care about this issue and want to learn more about trafficking. Many years ago, I volunteered at a children's shelter down in the valley for runaway kids. And I found to my horror that many of these sweet little 14, 15-year-old girls had been through the most horrific situations and had been trafficked. And after hearing their stories and seeing the level of trauma written all over them, it just became one of those things I couldn't look away from anymore. And shortly after that, I kept meeting people working in the arena, people working for NGOs fighting against trafficking, detectives working on trafficking. So it's almost like I felt I was called to make this movie. And I'm passionate about stopping abuse to kids. I also hate abuse to animals as well. And I'm very proud of what we've accomplished with this film so far, and super grateful to all the wonderful individuals who have supported us in doing this.
It was a tremendous event, and the film was very well displayed. The roles were perfectly role played, and it was a beautiful event. It's really interesting. We're getting some chats coming through here. People that have been in Thailand, people that have witnessed what this event was all about. I myself run a program here in Sacramento that is involved in helping young girls that get trafficked and get saved, and they bring them to some of our safe houses. Randall, this is a great question for you. As a father with daughters, was doing a role like this tough for you? Could you share how it impacted you maybe after the film, or your parenting skills after playing the role of Dan?
Yeah, great question, Johnny. Well, I didn't really know that much about trafficking. And when I saw the script and got into the project, I was sort of blown away, with this world, and I started researching it, and it's so harrowing, and this happens to thousands of people daily, in this country, and just to put yourself in that position of experiencing something like this, even as an actor, is pretty devastating. So I can't even imagine the people who are actually suffering from these travesties, this horrible plague in our society. Actually, after doing the film, I have been a little more aware. I've been just sort of keeping sort of vigilance on just watching people, and you can see how easy it would be for this to happen in certain communities, particularly in Venice, California right now. I just see so many, homeless youth, and you can see how vulnerable they are to these predators. So I've learned a lot, and this has been an amazing experience. And Julia, has opened my eyes to this horrible, disgusting, and frightening sort of disease in our society. So, yeah, as a parent, I'm very concerned about the issue.
Yeah, it definitely is an epidemic, and not just nationally, but internationally, as we know. I myself have 4 beautiful daughters too, and that's why I'm so advocate about this program and help on the other side. But it really makes you, like you said, it really makes you aware of what is out there, and how much more we can be involved with our children. Anthony, here's a great question for you, Anthony. Anthony Montgomery, he played the role of detective. What drew you to this project, and how was it working on the film with Julia as the director, as you guys worked together going through the script?
Well, thank you guys for having all of us. Julia, fantastic work. This is my first time seeing the film. So man, is it hard. Wow, it's heavy. I was drawn to it. Literally, this must have been, this was God putting me in the position to be a part of this. I am a father also. I have a daughter, but thank God my daughter is grown and has a wonderful life. But I do have a young son, and as a parent, it absolutely, exactly what Randall said. And as you know yourself, there's dangers lurking everywhere. So I'm coming from Indiana, and the abuse that I went through in my own life, I've always had my head on a swivel, and I always already didn't trust. So having a child just added to that. Being brought to this project, I actually came on board when a friend of mine who played, what is his character? Um,
Ivan.
Ivan, yes. Who played Ivan in the film, he had to drop out. Amin Joseph is the actor's name who plays Ivan. And just so that everybody knows, Amin is a beautiful human being. He is nothing like the disgusting guy that he played in that. But he had a scheduling conflict and couldn't play the role of Detective Dawson. And when we know each other, and he told me about it, I met Julia, and obviously the passion that she has for just being a dad myself, I was honored to be a part to help lend my voice, because I didn't know the statistics and I didn't know that world. I just know that it's out there, and I know because I've been blessed to be around the world that it runs rampant in the world. And whatever it is that I can do to help shine some light on it in my own way as an actor, I'm proud to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very well put. And it is global, as you know, and it does really. Anybody that watches this, it just really wrenches your heart and brings up a lot of different emotions. And we can go through a lot of different stats about this being happening to homeless youth, foster youth that are aged out or even young. So here's another great question. This question we'll ask of Olivia. How did you prepare for the role as Angie's mom? And I can't even imagine. We're all so close to our moms, and for a mom, the bond of a mom and their daughters, and to have this happen, I don't know how you would prepare for this role. How did you do that?
One of the things that made it, allowed me to sort of step into it a little bit more gracefully, is that I as everyone else, or the other actors amongst us today, I'm also a parent. I have a son, and Julia was very, she was very much on me about bringing her to life through my maternal instincts already given as a mother. So that made things, it allowed me to jump off the cliff in that respect. That being said, I'm one of those kind of people that I always, like many actors, you can prepare for something till you're blue in the face, and it's really not until you get on the set and you're dealing with the local osmosis that you're picking up from the other actors that until that point you have not met, which was the case in this with this project. And I really just it just took a lot of trust. I loved all of the other actors that I got to work with. I know Julia. I've known her for a very long time now. She's a soul sister to me, and so I just trusted. There was, in the material and in the character, I loved that she was a middle class mother, in a sort of, working with her husband, with Randall, and what it would be like. I just kept imagining what it would be like. I'm a very hard worker myself, and sometimes things they fall by the wayside because I'm so tunnel visioned on my work, and so I was able to use that. And also, she's a bit of a controlling woman, A-type personality, not like me at all. So that was actually more challenging for me than the maternal aspect. But how does an A-type personality, very driven woman who's, the core of her, she's got her heart in the right place, and she's very not concerned, but is keeping her eye on the pulse to earning enough money, bringing home the bacon with my husband, and we work together as a team to afford this house that we're living in, to afford the schools that we're sending our two daughters to, and to afford the kind of life that we feel we're entitled to. And so it was really just the circumstances that surrounded the story, and playing a woman like that kind of got me into the preparation, and then it came quite quite quickly day to day through working with everyone.
Yeah, and I can imagine the emotions as everybody's working together in each situation, each scene, as just emotions are growing and growing and growing to get just the passion that everybody had on the set and through the film. It was amazing. I have a great question for Kathy, but I have one that I want to ask Julia that came through our post. Julia, do you plan to do a film about trauma of first responders?
A film about trauma of first responders.
Yeah, as first responders, as my wife and myself, we've been first responders, first on scene when they find a girl or bring a girl to safety. And sometimes that plays a role on first responders and you don't know how to react. So maybe there's a film in the future maybe about first responders and what they go through as they're in this profession.
But funnily enough, in the original script, I had a lot more of the Rachel character's backstory in there, and we had scenes showing the trauma that she was going through, and how, because when I was researching this project, one of the things that I noticed was that a lot of the people, running the NGOs and working with survivors of trafficking had been trafficked themselves.
Oh yeah.
So I actually created the Rachel character based on one of the people that I'd spoken with, and I am developing a TV series on the topic, and that will certainly play a lot more in that.
Very good, very good. Kathy, great question for you. As someone who has survived an experience, what are your feelings on the film? Was it a realistic portrayal of what happens out there, and maybe the circumstances of how young girls are drawn into that trauma or that circumstance?
I think that the film was beautiful. Was a beautiful depiction of how it really happens. I think one of the major misconceptions that this film sort of debunked is that oftentimes it's not that individuals are taken or children are snatched off of the street with a bag over their head and thrown into a white van. It's not, it doesn't look like that. It looks like trusted relationships, right? A lot of the time. Though abductions and kidnapping, that happens, most of the time the victim knows their abuser. They know their trafficker. They've taken time, just like in the film, they've taken time to learn about that individual's likes and dislikes and family and stuff like that. So usually it's a trusted individual. That's one thing that I would say stuck out to me, because when I see those films that kind of sensationalize this topic, it takes away from the true experience for survivors and overcomers of trafficking, which sets us backwards to have to educate the community and society to hey, this is actually what it looks like. Your barista in your local coffee shop could be a victim of trafficking if you know the signs, right? So I really loved that part of it is just the highlighting the grooming process. And so, of course, watching the film is very emotional for me. It's always very triggering, but I have self-care. By now I have self-care down packed. So after this, I'm gonna indulge in that. But yes, but it's so important. It's so important. And so, I wish I could see a happy ending like this one, a somewhat happy ending like this one more often. But that's why this film is necessary, so that we can work towards that happy ending.
So I'll follow up on that question for you, Kathy, really quick. What advice, because when we look at the stats, and we read it just earlier, that the majority, I want to say the majority, a lot of the girls, the young girls, even young boys, at that critical age, 12 to 14 years old, that's a very critical age for emotional needs and disturbances and self-worth, that those small relationships could lead into what we just witnessed here at the film. What advice would you give to a parent?
Listen, Literally, that's my advice. You have to listen to your children when they outcry. A lot of times we brush off some of the red flags, like, oh, they're just being a teen. And it's really difficult because this complex issue, you know, a lot of the behaviors reflect normal teenage behaviors, right? But I think that you have to listen, pay deep attention to it. You know, we live in a society that's really, really fast. We live in social media land, literally. Yeah. Like our lives are all social media. And so when you send your child to their room with their smartphone at night, remember that you're sending them with thousands and thousands of people in that same bedroom at night, right? And so just think about just changing that perspective. Would you, if your child was to come to you and say, hey, could I have a party and invite 1,000 people in my bedroom? You would say no. That smartphone is kind of like social media apps. That's kind of the same thing. So just educating ourselves, getting familiar with the topics, and be as transparent as possible. There is appropriate language for all ages, so you don't have to be afraid to have these conversations, right? You can have them safely in a comfortable environment with your children, but I guarantee you that the language, you need to provide the language or they will learn it somewhere else, right? And so it's very important to be transparent and listen to our children.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, with today's world, and you know, as Olivia talked about, right? I mean, we're all running, and sometimes our children are all running for the carrot, whatever we're going to do, and listening to your children, especially in this day and age with social media, is very important. Here's a question. Maybe for Julie, even any panelists really. What psychological effect did acting in this film have on maybe the young actors? They're not here, but you know, did it have any kind of, do you think, social effect on them, or?
I was very aware that this was a trauma-invoking project, and I had extensive conversations with Jane, who played the lead in the film, before we started, you know, going to her, are you ready for this? This is going to be a very difficult and challenging role emotionally. Are you 100% comfortable in taking it on? And bless her heart, she was so brave. She was totally kind of fearless, and she was just she loved the role. She was passionate about the issue and wanted to jump on board 100%. And when we were shooting those tough scenes, I had to really make sure we had lots of hugs after, and all the rest of the cast also helped on that. So we all really made sure we looked after those young girls. And for me, it was important that once we'd done one of those dark, heavy, emotional scenes, we created a light atmosphere on set after that to help them out of it, because I didn't want them to go home stuck in that kind of dark, emotional place. Jane's mother was also with her on the set, you know, throughout the shoot. Anthony and Randall and Olivia were also fantastically supportive too. I think, you know, we operated like a little family and just all took care of each other, and there was a lot of hugs on set.
Well, yeah, I think you'd have to on a film like this, because of the emotions, the up and down emotions, to support each other. You know, we don't talk about this a lot in this industry, and I'm in the industry. I have some safe houses here in local Sacramento, and you know, we don't discuss a lot about young boys, and we talk about, you know, because of the issue, it's always in the prominence that, you know, the young girls are getting taken, like you know, like Kathy said, thrown in a bag in a white van, going away. But we don't necessarily talk about young boys in that critical age, 11, 12, 13, 14, that are still, you know, susceptible. As a matter of fact, I know we're on the film here, but as a matter of fact, I got a phone call yesterday from a young boy who was trafficked, and he was into labor, and he got freed, and they called me to find a house for him. But we don't talk about that. And so I'm going to ask this question to Anthony, being playing the detective and had to learn a lot of different things. As a father, as you mentioned, of a boy, what advice or what do you see after doing this film, what you can maybe share with your son of awareness or a parenting skill you could share with us?
The same thing that I also have a black belt in Hapkido. So I first and foremost am making sure that my son knows how to protect himself. Mm-hmm. The same awareness that every one of us as parents has taught our children. Because I was raised in the inner city of Indianapolis, there is just an unfortunate realization of this experience that I have to guard against. And I'm being very selective in how I say this because it will come out at some point. I am writing my autobiography and I have actually shared my truths in it. I was molested when I was 11 years old. So I was not trafficked, but I was abused. And this is much more than a role for me. So for me, I have to make sure that my son is not as trusting as I was, which is really hard to say because we want our children to be trusting, but as a child, you just can't be. You can't. And unfortunately, as a I'm sorry, what is your name? As a black person, there's only two of us on the panel. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. What's your name?
Kathy.
Kathy, I'm so sorry, Kathy. This is, you have your techniques. I don't have my techniques like that other than just meditating. So I didn't know where this entire thing was going to go, this entire discussion. But since we're here, we're here. I have to teach my son. Kathy has to teach her children, her nieces, nephews. We have to teach a different awareness that unfortunately white America will never have to understand. So it's not just about being a little boy or a little girl, a little black boy, a little black girl. That plays into a much bigger part of it for me, coming from Indiana, where the Klan in our country came to prominence. I have to equip my son, who is being raised in a private school setting in the liberal state of California, who knows nothing about what I'm talking about. I have to teach him in a completely different way. So when you ask that question, it's not a loaded question for you, but it's a loaded answer for me because there are so many levels that I have to educate my son on that I can't take the time for us to do this panel to explain to you. That's what I mean. So it's just, there's a lot that goes into it. And again, those things that Julia never knew, Randall and Olivia, I never shared any of those things. There were other reasons that I was supposed to be a part of this project. So I just continue to educate him to be kind, but be aware. You have to be aware. You can be as loving as you want, but everybody is not going to love you the way you believe they will. So we do everything we can. His mom and I, we're not together, but we make sure our son feels loved. He knows that he is loved. He knows, exactly like Kathy said, that there are communication lines that are always open for him. Even when he's mad at dad, he knows that he can come and talk to me. And I'm very strict on him for that reason. He doesn't understand why dad is on him as much as I am. And I said, because my life literally stops if I have to get a call or your mom has to get a call saying that someone has killed our black son because he was walking down the street going to the store. So there is a complete, it's not, the trafficking is one thing, and that's a whole other tier. So there's a lot that goes into it. So, again, I love Julia for this. And that's why I told her if she does take this to a series, God bless, God willing, it happens. Of course, I'm there to help tell as many of these stories as we need to. Because in what I saw in this, as much as I love Law and Order SVU, this didn't sensationalize it like I feel like Kathy is talking about. Those are fun shows and they make a lot of money, but there was a depth to this and what Julia has done with this that supersedes how much money you will make. Hopefully the awareness will get out there for people, and as scary as this subject is, hopefully more people will take it on from this project and the future ones that Julia is going to do.
Beautiful, well stated. Be aware. I'm the CEO at Freedom Through Education, a nonprofit in Sacramento, and I house at any given time lifers that have been in prison for many, many years. And one thing I can tell you is when you sit down with these individuals and hear their personal story, it is amazing as we talk about trauma and we talk about trafficking, we talk about what goes on that we don't see on film and inside of families. Every single one of these individuals, I would say 90% of these individuals have experienced trauma by a family member or of some sort that perpetrated into a very violent crime out on the street. So trauma is amazing, but being aware for sure. I mean, this subject, we could be on this on a panel for hours discussing and getting advocacy, but we're just about out of time. I have one more question for Julia, and then we'll wrap up. But one question for Julia: what can people do to help?
I think one of the most important things people can do to help is keep their eyes open. You know, if you see trafficking going on around you, report it. That way, you could save someone. So if you see somebody at a gas station with someone that doesn't look right, or you see something kind of going on in a house around you, call and report it. Support non-profit.
Yeah. Oh, I think Julie just went. Her mic just went off. I think she just went mute. So she said, if you see something abnormal, you're back. Oh, she's back on. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Support some of the great nonprofits fighting trafficking out there. Support us at Artists for Change so we can make more films like this. For me, education equals prevention. I think many times teenagers are the best line of defense. So I've been really pushing hard to get this film shown in schools and in colleges. Yes. And we've got a whole youth committee now at Artists for Change of young people who are sharing the word about this film, because the teenagers are the most likely to spot something going on with one of their friends. And so if they can recognize what grooming looks like, there's more of a chance that they'll talk to someone in authority and that child can be saved. But before we finish, Kathy, Johnny, I'd love Kathy maybe to also share something on what people can do to help and just say a few words about her nonprofit as well.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. Go ahead, Kathy. Are you there?
I'm having problems hearing. Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just couldn't hear Julia.
Oh, I can hear you. So the question was, you have a nonprofit. The question was, how can people help? And Julie kind of mentioned you and your nonprofit. We want to know really quickly about your nonprofit and how we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. So our nonprofit is called 1211 Partners, and we come in for the post-restorative care. That's after individuals have gone to emergency assessments, have gone through extensive therapy and stuff like that, and now they're being reintegrated. One of the hardest things for myself that I found is okay, after all of the programs and after we leave safe houses, it's kind of like, now I'm supposed to live in community. How do I do that? So 1211 Partners comes in to help individuals really thrive once they're reintegrated, just thrive to be just regular citizens, right? And take off that label. So
Is that a national organization?
It is. It started
Beautiful.
in Houston, and so we're
Okay.
helping individuals all over. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, as we nonprofits like myself that have houses and safe houses, that is a thing that after they leave our house or our program, we follow up the best we can as other individuals come. But I'll connect with you maybe a little bit later through your nonprofit, and I'd love to partner with you or talk to you about the ladies that we have in our program as well as they transition out.
Absolutely.
Any question that wasn't answered, we have a list of them. I'm sorry we don't have enough time, but we'll answer all the questions on the Artists for Change Facebook page. So go over to Artists for Change Facebook page, like the page, log on the page, follow the page. We also like to thank those of you who have donated to Artists for Change already. Please feel free to visit the website for more information. Remember, education leads to prevention. I just want to thank all of the actors and Julia that were on here. It's an honor to help host this event. It's very touching to my heart, and you guys did an amazing job. The chat's filled up with what a great job each and every one of you did. So I'm looking forward to the next series or the next film that we can advocate more to save more individuals through this. So I want to thank you. Hope you all have a great night. Have a blessed weekend, and don't forget, self-care is very important.
There is.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.